welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be discussing all of the series that I'm in the middle of. I feel like it's time for us to do a little bit of an inventory because I'm in the middle of so many series at this point. I don't even know how many anymore, but it's a lot. To start off on a more positive note, let's start with a series that I'm in the middle of, but I'm caught up. First up is, surprise, surprise, the Magnolia Parks universe. The next book is coming out in literally like 3 days. I'm obviously caught up and I will be continuing this series. I never shut up about it. I feel like I've talked about this series in almost every single video since I first read Magnolia Park's Long Way Home. The next one is Empire of the Vampire. So I don't know how many books are going to be in this series. Only one book is out as of today. So obviously I'm caught up because I read that one book. That's why I'm in the middle of the series. Why am I over explaining? The next book in the series is coming out at the end of February and you best believe I will be picking it up as soon as it outs. What? As soon as it outs? I will be picking it up as soon as it's out because I have been waiting for this book since 2022. And then the next series is Tita Rosie's Kitchen Mystery series. This is the Filipino cozy mystery series that I have been reading. The fourth book came out last year. There's actually no news of when the fifth book is gonna come out, but we did get an excerpt of the fifth book in the last book. I'm assuming it's gonna come out sometime this year. We'll see. Next one is the Ruinous Love trilogy. Butcher and Blackbird came out late last year and I read it in October, I believe. October or November, I don't know. But I read it during the fall time and I had such a good time with that book. If you're not familiar with Butcher and Blackbird, it calls itself a dark rom-com. I think that's really the best description for it. Like, it is a rom-com but with a little bit of a darker theme. Butcher and Blackbird follows two serial killers. They kill really bad people. Every single year they get together and they have this competition against each other as to who can kill a specific target first. Obviously throughout the years they become friends and then they fall in love. It's funny, it's satirical, it's cute, even if there are darker themes. I really enjoyed it and I think the next book is going to be coming out in June, and if I'm not mistaken it involves the brother of the guy. And then the next series is Heartstopper. We all thought for the longest time that the fifth volume was going to be the final volume, but after reading the fifth volume, we also collectively found out that there is going to be one more, the sixth volume, and that is going to be the final volume. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm kind of sad, but at the same time, I am excited to see how their story is going to wrap up. What was that? Sorry, the dogs are going crazy. Moving on is the Maple Hill series. This is Icebreaker and Wildfire is the second book. The third book I think is called Daydream, and I know it's going to be coming out later this year. I actually have not looked up what this one is about or who it's about, but I'm assuming it's one of the other hockey boys, obviously. And I'm excited for it. I really enjoyed the series. It's a college sports romance series. Like, what more can I say about that? I'm also in the middle of Monsters by Vanessa Len. The second book came out last year and we have no idea when the third book is gonna come out. This is gonna be a trilogy and this second book kind of ended on a crazy note. I need to know what's gonna happen. I also need to know where the romance is gonna go because I am so invested in the romance of this series. It's a YA fantasy series that follows a family of monsters. Well, specifically a girl who comes from a family of monsters, but she doesn't find out that she's a quote-unquote monster until things start to happen at her new job. The magic system in this book is very interesting. It involves time traveling, and in order to time travel, they have to do something very messed up. They're not monsters in the sense of like
pointy teeth, big horns, crazy looking face.
You know what I mean? They look like people, but they're monsters in the sense that they have to do this messed up thing in order to use their magic. I just want to know where the romance is gonna go, okay? Like, the plot is cool and all, but the romance is my favorite part. And it's not a fantasy romance by any means. Like, the romance is very, like, crumbs, you know, but they're my favorite crumbs. And then the next one is The Stolen Heir. This one is a duology spin-off from the Cruel Prince series. This one follows Oak, if you remember him from the Cruel Prince series. A second book called The Prisoner's Throne is gonna come out in March, and I cannot wait for this one. I really enjoyed the first book. I know a lot of people were disappointed by it. I mean, it wasn't to the same level of The Cruel Prince for me, but it was good. I thought it was fun, and I really enjoyed the story. I'm also in the middle of the Empyrean series, which is Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, if you're not familiar with it. I don't know how you wouldn't be familiar with it if you've been anywhere on the internet, because Fourth Wing specifically took over the world, even the non-book parts of the world. I don't know, that was so wild. I did enjoy Iron Flame. I know a lot of people were disappointed by it and didn't like it. I liked it. I had a good time with it. I gave it 4 stars. I didn't like it as much as Fourth Wing, don't get me wrong. There's no news of when the 3rd book is gonna come out yet. I hope she takes her time with it though. Releasing the 2nd book so close to the release of the 1st book was, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but it was very chaotic. My copy of Iron Flame has misprint on it because there were so many books that had a misprint since, you know, I think they rushed it too much. But either way, I'm gonna be continuing with the series. Next one is Campus Diaries. This is Elle Kennedy's spin-off from the Off-Campus / Briar U series. What is the title of the 1st book? I swear I read it. It's called The Graham Effect. Garrett and Hannah are the people from the very first off-campus book, The Deal. This book, The Graham Effect, follows their daughter, who is also a hockey player. Both the girl and the boy are hockey players, which I don't think I've ever read a hockey romance like that. It's usually just the boy who's a hockey player. There was a little bit too much hockey in it for me personally, but I don't know, I enjoyed it. It was actually a very pleasant surprise because I didn't love the Briar U books. I liked, I think, one of the books from the Briar U series, and then the rest of them I didn't really like. So I didn't think I was gonna like this, but I gave it a shot and I did enjoy it. So it was a very pleasant surprise, and I will be continuing on with the series. Sometimes I just need a fun, easy contemporary romance. And for my contemporary romance needs, I love a series or at least interconnected standalones. I just like that you get to spend more time in this world and that the world gets bigger the more books you read in the series, but you don't necessarily have to read them in a certain order. You know what I mean? I need to sneeze. And then the next series is Violet Made of Thorns. I read the 1st book, Violet Made of Thorns, back in 2022 because I got it from a book subscription box and I really enjoyed it. I had a fun time and it ended in a cliffhanger. But we haven't really gotten any news about the 2nd book, when it's gonna come out. We don't have a title, like we don't know. But if you go on Goodreads, it says that there is going to be a 2nd book. So I don't know, I'm very confused. But whenever they do announce a 2nd book, I'm definitely going to be checking it out. And then the final series that I'm in the middle of that I'm caught up with is the X-Hack series. I literally just caught up with this one. I just read The Kiss Curse last month. The 3rd and final book comes out this year and I will definitely be picking that up. I think it actually comes out in October, which is perfect. Because if you're not familiar with the series, it's a witchy little rom-com set in a small town. It's gonna be the perfect rom-com to read in October. We're already 12 series deep, and those are just the series that I'm in the middle of and actually caught up with. Now let's get into the series where I'm a little bit iffy on. I don't know if I'm going to continue these. If you guys have any opinions on these series, please let me know down below. If you think I should continue, let me know why. I'm very on the fence about these. So the first one is the Zodiac Academy series. I am 4 books deep into this series. I think the 9th and final book is coming out sometime this year. I don't know, because last I heard the 8th book was going to be the final book, but then all of a sudden the authors were like, oh, actually there's gonna be another one. I didn't really love the 4th book. I really enjoyed books 2 and 3. That's why I even continued with the 4th. But the 4th book just went in a direction that I didn't really love. And my favorite character had a freaking personality transplant. I don't know what happened with her, but she became the most insufferable character in book 4. And I don't know, I just didn't love where it go. I just didn't love where it went, and I don't know if I'm gonna like where it goes. There are still characters in this series that I do like, and I would like to see where their character arc takes them, but that main character that I dislike is a main character, so, you know, she's a main focus of the story, and if she's gonna be as insufferable as she was in the 4th book in the upcoming books, I don't know if I can sit through like 800 pages of her. And then the next one is The Remnant Chronicles. This is the series that comes before the Dance of Thieves duology. I enjoy the first 2 books a lot, but I tried reading the 3rd book last year and I got about 30% of the way through. I decided to soft DNF it, and I don't know if I actually want to pick it back up because there's a love triangle in this series, and at first it was fine. I didn't mind it. I'm not a love triangle hater by any means. Like, I don't mind them usually, but sometimes they can get very annoying, and It got very annoying in that third book because we are 30% of the way through the final book and the stupid love triangle is still exactly where it was at in the first book. There was barely any progress, but at the same time, it's very obvious who she's gonna end up with, and it's just so frustrating because it's like, bro, just get it over with. Like, we are 30% of the way through in the final book. Like, why is this still a thing? And then we have the Lockwood trilogy. So I've talked about Control a couple of times. I saw it randomly on an Instagram post and I was like, that looks very interesting. I literally bought it and got it and read it in the same day, which rarely ever happens for me. It felt like a very trashy teen paranormal TV show, you know? And I had a good time reading that first book. It was fun and addictive, but I read the second book. I could barely get through that book. I hated half of that book because it was in the point of view of a character that I just didn't care for. I don't know why the author decided to give that character a point of view. Like, it made no sense to me. The final book literally just came out, I think last week. Because it's the final book in the series, I kind of want to see how it's gonna end. But also, like, since I didn't love the last book, I'm a little hesitant. I think this is one of those books that I probably will give it a chance because it is on Kindle Unlimited. I at least don't have to like spend extra money on it. So even if I end up DNFing it, I won't feel as bad. If you guys have read the final book, let me know if you think it's worth it. And then next up is the Wrath and the Dawn duology. I read The Wrath and the Dawn in 2022, but I think I've gotten to a point where like I might have to reread that book again in order to continue with the series because I waited too long. And I hate when that happens. I know it's no one's fault but myself, but I don't know if I would want to continue because of that. Because I remember really enjoying The Wrath and the Dawn, and I remember that it also kind of ended in a cliffhanger. This next series is very out of pocket. It's Terminal List by, I think, Jack Haar is the author, I forget, but this is a political thriller series. It was my very first political thriller I've ever read. It still is the only political thriller I've ever read, and I really enjoyed the first book. It had so much more depth than I was expecting. One of my biggest things about thrillers is that the characters don't usually have that much depth and we don't really see any of their inner turmoils because we're so focused on, you know, the thriller aspect of it, the big mystery or whatever. I really liked the first one because it had a decent amount of emotional depth in it. But I didn't love the second book. I think I gave the second book like a 2 stars. I gave the first book I think a 4 stars. I was so bored in like the first half of it, so I don't know if I'm gonna continue with this series. Maybe if I'm ever like in a political thriller mood ever again. I don't know when that's gonna happen. And then we have the Kingdom of the Wicked series by Cara Maniscalco. This is another YA fantasy romance. Is it YA or is it new adult? I think it's new adult or adults. I didn't love the first book. I didn't hate it, but I was just very lukewarm. I thought I was gonna really love this series. I think on paper, everything about this series, I should love it. But for some reason, I don't. So I don't really know what to make of that. I just don't know if I'm intrigued enough to continue with the next 2 books. I don't know. I mean, I'm intrigued by the whole like Prince of Hell setup that this book series has. But like the execution of the first book was like, I don't know. I feel like the world building was very shallow. The magic system was literally just Italian words. Even the witches, like they're literally just witches, but they're like,
no, we're strega.
Strega is witch in Italian. I did buy Throne of the Fallen, which is a spin-off of that series, because that one seems very, very intriguing. But I know that if I read Throne of the Fallen, it's most likely gonna spoil stuff from Kingdom of the Wicked. So before I can even pick up Throne of the Fallen, I need to like make sure that I no longer want to continue with Kingdom of the Wicked. And I don't know. Like, let me know if you guys have read this series, if you think it's worth it to continue, because I'm actually very, very torn about this one. Because like I said, I didn't hate the first book. I think I gave it like a 3 stars, which is a pretty good rating. This next one is gonna be a little controversial because people love this. I think it's a duology. The Legendborn Cycle. I didn't love Legendborn. I'm sorry. I know people loved Legendborn. I was not one of them. I didn't hate it per se, but I didn't like the writing. I loved the world and I loved the characters, but I hated the writing. So sorry. I'm so sorry. There was so much info dumping in that book. I was literally like, what the actual fuck am I reading right now? It's literally just characters telling another characters how the world works. There would be like 5 pages in a row and it's literally just one character narrating exactly how the magic system works. my eyes would be glazing over. I'm like, oh my god, please stop telling and start showing, please, because the actual world is interesting. The world is interesting, the magic system is interesting, but stop telling me how interesting it is. Show me. I don't know. I was very frustrated with that one because I should have loved it if it was executed a little bit differently. That's mostly why I've been very hesitant to pick up the next book on that one. Let me know if the info dumping stops in the second book. And then The Crown's Game by Evelyn Skye. I just read it last year and I enjoyed it a decent amount, but not really either. I don't know. I like the world. The magic was fun to watch or to read about. To watch. Here's my thing about this book, right? When I was reading it, like the descriptions were so vivid to a point that it genuinely felt like I was watching a movie as I was reading the book. So that's obviously a good sign. But the story in and of itself is not the most remarkable, and there's also a really stupid love triangle in this one. I know this is the second time I've complained about love triangle after having said that I'm not a love triangle hater, and I swear I'm not. I'm really not. I think love triangles are just difficult to do, and The Crown's Game committed every single sin that you could commit when writing about a love triangle. It was so dumb. The second love interest was so stupid. And then last but not least in this series that I don't know if I'm continuing is the Prep series by Elle Kennedy as well. This one was weird. The first book is called Prep. The second book I think is called Misfits or something like that. It's set in this boarding school. It's an all-boys boarding school. The headmaster has two daughters, and the first book follows the first daughter and her romance and also a bunch of the other boys in the school, and I believe the second book is going to follow the sister and her romance with one of the other boys in the school. I don't know, I thought this one was very cringe. I didn't really love much about the first book, to be honest with you, but there is a character that I really liked. I think he might be the love interest in the second book. That's the only reason why this series hasn't completely been scrapped and completely been DNF'd for me. There is still a little bit of intrigue about that second book, if it's gonna be better. I don't know, honestly. This was definitely not in like a priority series for me, so even if I do decide to continue it, it's probably not going to be anytime soon, so let's count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those are 9 series, so that means we are now at 21 series, and we haven't even gotten to the series that I'm in the middle of that I'm for sure continuing and I'm not caught up with. This is ridiculous. I'm so bad at finishing series. I'm terrible. It's actually a miracle that I'm caught up with 12 of them. Alright, now it's time to get into the series that I am in the middle of and need to either finish or catch up. This first series is a series that I have been reading since 2021. Any guesses? Any guesses? It's the Addicted Calloway series. I have 2 books left. I have Long Way Down and Some Kind of Perfect. So literally just Long Way Down, because Some Kind of Perfect is basically just an epilogue novel. I literally just have 1 book. Technically, I meant to finish it last year and I just haven't picked it up. I don't know what it is. Well, actually I do know. It's because that final book is going to center around Reich and Daisy, and they're definitely my least favorite couple in this universe. This book is also, I think, the longest book in the series so far, and I still will read it because I know that we're still gonna get the other characters in here. I want to see how the series ends. It's not that I dislike them. They honestly kind of grew on me in the last book. I like them so much more because of the growth that happened in the last book, and I have faith in Krista and Becca Ritchie that the character growth in The Long Way Down is gonna be there, and I'm probably gonna end up liking them by the end of the series, but I'm not very excited to go into a Reich and Daisy book. How many times do I need to say that? Let's move on. Next one is the Alex Stern series, which is Ninth House and Hellbent. I literally have 1 book left till I'm caught up. I've talked about Hellbent before. It was one of my most anticipated reads last year, and I didn't get to it because I kept on putting it off. This is one of those books that I just am afraid to read it because I have such high expectations for it, but also with that being said, I know that I'm going to like it. I don't think I'm gonna read it in February because I do have a lot of other books that I need to get to this month, but I want to read it before summer. That's my goal. Next up is Caraval. I have literally one book left. I just have to read finale and I'm done with the Caraval trilogy and I can officially move on to Once Upon a Broken Heart. I'm going to be picking up Caraval sometime this month. I'm gonna try at least. I'm gonna try really hard to pick it sometime this month. I'm very intrigued to see where this series is gonna go and how it's going to end and how the ending is going to come into play in Once Upon a Broken Heart. I want to see how the two kind of like mesh together. Next up is the Mortal Instruments reread. I need to finish this reread so I can move on with the other Shadowhunters reread. I just have City of Heavenly Fire left. I think I'm gonna do that once I'm done with the Throne of Glass series. I mean, the two have nothing to do with each other, but in my brain, I can't read them both at the same time. I don't know why. Next up is the Illuminae files. So I read Illuminae last year. I actually have a reading vlog on it if you guys are interested in that one. And I loved it. I had such a good time reading that book. I read that during my book buying ban. This is the most fucked up part about this, okay? I ranted and vented so much about not being able to pick up the next two books in this series that one of my beautiful friends actually bought it for me. I didn't ask. I just want to say I didn't ask. Obviously, I'm very grateful that she did that for me. That's how much I ranted about, like,
oh my god, I just want my book buying ban to be over so I can buy the next two books so I can continue the series, blah blah blah.
she bought it for me. And of course I didn't read it. Of course I didn't read it right away. Like, so I need to read this series soon. I need to just sit down and binge the last two books because they're honestly very bingeable. They are pretty thick, but it's like that multimedia style. I've talked about this series so many times as well, but it's like that multimedia style. It has like illustrations, there's emails, there's maps and stuff like that. So even if it's a thicker book, it's very immersive and it goes by very quickly. Next one is The Song of the Last Kingdom. I think this is going to be a trilogy if I'm not mistaken, or maybe a duology. No, I think it's just a duology. The second book just came out in January of this year, so literally just a couple of weeks ago. I really enjoyed Song of Silver Flame Like Night. It was so good, and it ended in like a very crazy note as well. I really am excited to see how Emily Wen Zhao is going to close off this world and this storyline because I think there's still a lot to do. Next up is the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I have only read one of the books. I did put Six Scorched Roses in my February TBR. Six Scorched Roses is the novella in between the first and the second book, so it's like the 1.5 book. I think you actually follow a different character in Six Scorched Roses, and I believe that character shows up in the last book. Do you hear that backfiring? It sounds like literal farts.
I can hear a V12. I can hear a V12. Oh my giddy aunt.
Next up is The October Society. I read the first book in the October Society series last October. It's a spooky book and it's like set during October. Like, it's the best fall time read. That first book in this series really caught me off guard. It is a collection of short stories, and the short stories are told by these group of friends all around this campfire. There's like an overarching plot regarding those friends. But I think I'm gonna wait to read the next two books in this series in the fall time because, as I said, it's the perfect fall book. And then we have the Chestnut Spring series. I've only read the first two books in the series and I loved both of them. And honestly, I'm not in a rush to finish this series at all because these are like interconnected standalones or like companions. What is the difference between an interconnected standalone and a companion series? I don't really know, but it's that kind of series where you don't really have to read them in order technically, but you should, kind of deal. But yeah, I'm not in a rush to read the next couple of books in the series. I'm definitely gonna save them for spring summertime because these romances are just the perfect spring summertime beach type of read. I've already mentioned the Throne of Glass series earlier. I am in the middle of it right now. I am filming a reading vlog on it, so stay tuned for that. I am now in Queen of Shadows, so after this one I would have 3 more books left and I'm excited to finish the series. I'm aiming to finish all of them in February. This one shouldn't be sitting on this list for way too long because I am actively working on it. So, and then we have the Thursday Murder Club series. I've only read one so far. I think there's like 4 books out. I don't know, maybe 5. There's a lot of books out in this series already. If you're not familiar with this one, it follows the Thursday Murder Club, which is a group of these senior citizens that live in a senior home together, and every Thursday they get together and they solve a crime together, or they try to solve a crime together. It has that really good British humor that I love, but there's also still some depth to it. It is one of those series that I'm not really in a hurry to read, but I will definitely be continuing this in the future. I have plans on picking up the next book whenever I feel like picking up another cozy little... It's not a cozy mystery series, but you know, there's a coziness to it. I'm sorry, the camera's moving because my dog is moving on the bed. There you go. Hi, buddy. Hold on. Pause. There you go. He has settled down. Next series is the Glimmerfall series. The first book in this series I read last year as well. It's the... what is that book called? It has a really long title. A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon. Yeah, that's what the first one is called. It's another one of those small town witchy romances. I've said before that this feels like a spring version of the X-Hex. The second book in this series came out late last year. I think it's called A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch, something like that. And I'm actually very excited about this one because we got a little hint of this couple at the very end of the first book, and I think they're already gonna have a funny, like, enemies to lovers type of dynamic, which is always a good time. And then the next one is the Shepherd King duology. This is One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. I just read One Dark Window 2 days ago. I'm so excited to get to do Twisted Crowns. I'm gonna read it as soon as I get a copy of the book. I did pre-order it from Fairy Loot, so I don't know when it's gonna come here. It's probably not gonna be until like March. I wanted my copy to match my first Fairy Loot copy. I did put it on hold on Libby, so we'll see which one gets here first, if it's gonna be Fairy Loot or Libby, because I think the wait was like 15 weeks or something crazy. I mean, it's usually never actually that long, but anyways, the last and final series that I am in the middle of that I'm definitely gonna be continuing is Beartown by Frederick Bachman. I'm actually still in the middle of the first book. I just wanted to read all of Frederick Bachman's works. I love his writing. I love the way that he talks about the human experience. It's so good. That was 14 series that I'm in the middle of that I still need to finish or catch up. 21 plus, what did I say, 14? That's 35 series that I'm in the middle of. I am in the middle of 35 different series right now. I am in the middle of 35 different series. What the actual fuck? This is why one of my biggest goals for 2024 is to reduce the amount of series that I'm in the middle of. Yeah, that is gonna be it for me today. I have talked way too long. I have sat in this position for way too long. My legs are starting to cramp. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you on the next one. Toodles!